I'm at the base of the 1,000 Steps at the foothills of the Dandenongs. The 1,000 Steps is a memorial to soldiers fallen on the Kokoda Trail in Papua New Guinea. I'm climbing this in training for being on Wudang Mountain and the daily walk down the mountain to get a coffee and then back up. I came up here with a mate the other day, and at the start back there he stopped and said, right, I'm just going to visualize what goal in my life climbing these steps represents. I thought, that's brilliant. I grew up climbing these steps. I grew up out this way, and I never thought to do that, but it makes an incredible lot of sense. And then I noticed as we were climbing up, all along the way are these little signposts telling the story of the soldiers on the Kokoda Trail. And it's really, particularly when you're a kid, you stop and read them all the way up. And it really helps you to get up the, well, there aren't 1,000, I think there's something like 457, but it helps you get up the steps. It's quite a steep climb. And it got me thinking about how addicted our minds are to stories. And all this week in my readings, the same passage in the Tao Te Ching keeps coming back at me from different sources. And it's a passage that George Harrison used in the Beatles song The Inner Light. And it goes something like, without stepping out of my door, I can see all things on earth. Without looking out of my window, I can know the ways of heaven. The farther you travel, the less one really knows. And yeah, he's right, particularly when it comes to the Tao. The Tao is innate within all of us. We all, in some ways, understand it intrinsically. And when I go to China in a few weeks, I'm going on a bit of a Taoist pilgrimage, which, when looked at from the perspective of that chapter of the Tao Te Ching, seems a bit absurd. Why would I travel all the way to China and climb mountains to learn something that I could learn sitting in my front room at home? And I think it all ties in with something Alan Watts talks about, and that's how your mind will not accept knowledge that it doesn't feel you've earned. Sometimes we need to put ourselves through trials or stories in order to accept something that we already know. And often on the path that we've set along, we may learn what we set out to learn, but that turns out to be not much use to us. But we happen to learn something else on the journey that's incredibly useful for us. So when I take things like my Taoist pilgrimage, I try to be mindful that it's the journey itself that's the important part. And I may learn things that I didn't set out to learn along the way. And I may not actually get as much satisfaction or feeling that I've really mastered what I set out to on the journey. But that doesn't make the journey any less worthy of walking and taking.